Well, I think it's a stellar combination. And I know Porzingis has got to get his feet wet kind of here. And we just heard Rick Carlisle say he expects a timeline similar to Gordon Hayward in terms of coming back, so that would be a whole season. But when Porzingis, and I've covered Porzingis in New York, when he gets it going, man, I mean, that's a lethal combination. And Luka's obviously playing out of his mind. He's one of the top 10 easily players in the NBA right now, probably going to be the top 5 eventually. So when those two get together and they're hitting on all cylinders, it's going to be dangerous. It's going to be fun and fantastic.
And then obviously our colleague Scoop talked to Melo last night. What are your thoughts about those comments that he made that Melo still wants to play?
Well, it's not surprising. We knew he was going to wanted to play, and I, for the life of me, I don't understand. Actually, I do understand why no team has picked him up, but I do think that he can still contribute to a team. I think that his comments about not wanting to come off the bench, not wanting to be a role player, I feel like that hurt him a little bit. But he's progressed from that stance. I think teams are still a little wary of him. But the last time I covered a game, he was still with the Houston Rockets. He dropped 28 points on the Brooklyn Nets, and he looked fantastic. So I know he can still score. I know he can still be a player that can contribute in this league.
And then is it weird not being, well, obviously you've covered for a while, that Derrick is not in uniform?
Yeah, it is weird. It was always, you came to Dallas, you saw Dirk. When Dallas came to the Garden, you saw Dirk. So it is a little weird, but you got to applaud the Dallas Mavericks from going from one era with Dirk Nowitzki and going straight to another one without even much of a pause when you talk about Luka Doncic and Kristaps Porzingis. So it's still pretty awesome and cool to come to Dallas to cover these games because they're a fun team.
And then what would you like to see your Knicks do to improve their record going forward?
Well, they got to play defense and they got to hit shots. Unfortunately, they're not doing either of them right now. They have the worst record in the NBA, and it's really unfortunate. They spent $70 million in the offseason. They thought they were going to get Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant. Those guys obviously went across the Manhattan Bridge to the Brooklyn Nets. So that was a blow. But they have to get consistency too. I mean, this Fizdale is putting out his 7th different lineup tonight, and it's only game 9.
8 or 9.
8 or 9.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of turnover already, and that was a problem last season. So they got to get consistency, and they got to give the effort. Some nights they just don't.
What's been the vibe in New York, seeing that Kyrie and Kevin went across the bridge instead of actually coming to the world's most famous arena?
Right. Well, the dynamic in New York is similar to the dynamic in LA, where you have the A team. In LA, it's the Lakers. In New York, it's the Knicks. And then you have like B, way below, in terms of popularity and interest and attention. But now this move kind of puts the Nets on the map. It shows that that it's important to put together the right culture and build the right way, which Sean Marks did as the GM there. Players take notice, and B, it shows that if you just because you have the Madison Square Garden, just because you have the Mecca, you got to still win. Players want to win these days, so that's kind of been the vibe there.
And then obviously covered Derrick Rose in New York. Obviously, the All-Star game is in Chicago. What are your thoughts about that? I know David Miniman from ESPN said it would be the ultimate storybook ending if he was to be picked in this upcoming All-Star game. What are your thoughts about that?
I agree. I think it'd be great. The year I covered Derrick was a tough year for him. He was injured at the end of it. He left in the middle of the season for one game, but I loved him. I mean, he was a great guy, and he can get to the rim still better than 95% of the point guards out there. So I think it would be great for him, considering, like you said, storybook ending. He's from Chicago. He was the youngest MVP of all time there. Really represents the best the Chicago Bulls have had since Michael Jordan. So I agree. I think it'd be pretty cool.
He also said that Derrick might be the first MVP not to make the Hall of Fame. What are your thoughts about that? Yeah,
I mean, it's injuries, right? It stinks, but it's true. His career really didn't take off like we all thought it did because he tore his ACL, and then he was one injury after another. I mean, right now you cannot put him in the Hall of Fame just based on what he did, and it's unfortunate because he had the talent.
Right.
And just injuries played a role.
And then final question for me. There's a bunch of other former Knicks on the free agency market. What are your thoughts about that, being that they haven't been signed and they can obviously help the team?
Like J.R. Smith, Iman Shumpert. I don't know. I think there's probably a reason why other teams are not interested in signing those guys, because JR's been on the market for a long time now. And, I know it's kind of hypocritical because I said I don't understand why Carmelo's not. But I think with those other two guys, I think maybe,
and you got Crawford as well.
Crawford. How old is Crawford now?
He's going to be 40 this year.
Yeah, so, I mean, maybe, sometimes guys just run his course,
I wanted to ask you, I know Dennis has suffered, family, personal tragedy. But before that, he's playing like 10 minutes a game. Do you expect that to continue? What is going on there?
Well, he was really struggling with his shot. It got to the point where he was in a deep funk. It was almost like it was in his head. I think he went 1 for 11 in the preseason or something like that. It ended up the combination of the preseason and the regular season, he was only 3 for 24. So he was really struggling. And the Knicks have 2 other point guards, Elfrid Payton and Frank Ntilikina, who they want to give time to. So it's really up to Dennis, to bounce back and show that he can contribute to this team. And with the athleticism that he has, you talk about Derrick Rose, he's a Derrick Rose type player in terms of athleticism. So I think he'll show that he can do it.
Do you feel, I guess personally, that this team could turn things around, potentially get to, flirting with the playoff spot, considering how open the East is, or is this kind of just another?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to say. They're playing so poorly at the beginning of the season. Theoretically, they should, though. I mean, they spent $70 million on free agents. A lot of these guys are accomplished players. Marcus Morris has been on playoff teams the last few years. Taj Gibson is somebody who's been on playoff teams when you mentioned Derrick Rose and the Bulls. So, theoretically, they should. I will say this: they should be better than they are. I think they will be better than they are. I do not think that they're going to compete for a playoff spot, though.
And last one, what have you seen from RJ so far, and what have you seen from Randall? Do you like the tandem?
Randall struggled. I'm surprised how much he struggled. They put him in a point forward role, and he's been largely inefficient, and he's turning the ball over a lot. So he needs to get adjusted to that better. They kind of took the ball out of his hands the last few games. I think that's something that's going to continue because, like I said, he struggled. RJ Barrett has been great. He's been better than I anticipated. One thing that's really surprised me is how he gets after it defensively, because some of his reputation coming into the draft was he's not a great defensive player, but I have not seen that. I think he really has the tools and the mindset to not only be a scorer in this league, which everybody thought, but a good defensive player as well.